Hello, everybody. It's great to be here tonight, and I think you're going to think that it's really great to be here for yourselves because of what we're going to talk to you about. We're going to introduce our Sisel coffee, and it's going to be spelled K-A-F-F-E. And Sisel coffee is really a unique one. Now, as Aaron was talking about, it's certainly one of the greatest commodities for being sold within the world, and virtually most people are drinking coffee. I go to the meetings and I ask how many people drink coffee. Almost every hand goes up. And I say, how many people know 10 people that drink coffee? Every hand goes up. How many know the 100? Every hand goes up. So how much money are you getting paid for drinking coffee? No hands go up. And that's the whole thing. The coffee industry is a massive one, but it's one that I never thought there would ever be a type of a commodity for network marketing. To me, I looked upon it as perhaps like MLM and bread, because I just didn't see what the big factor that would drive coffee. But now that I do know it, and I really know it, we decided to make the world's finest coffee. And it wasn't really difficult to do. It just cost a lot of money to do it. And so with that, we took a look at the coffees that are being sold around in the marketplace. So first of all, when you're selling something, there's three important things that you should do in selling. First of all is find a need. Second is create doubt. And third is provide a solution. So if we take a look at it, is there a need for coffee? Of course, everybody's drinking it. And if you could turn this into a second income stream, wouldn't that be sensational? And so we took a look at that and decided that we can make two different compensation plans to sell this product so that people that are drinking coffee anyway now can get paid on it, and they can build a big business with their Sisel side and also a big one with their coffee side. But in order to do that, you have to look at coffees, and we want to have the world's finest coffee that's out there, not only finest for flavor and taste, but also for the health benefits and weight loss benefits that we can incorporate into coffee, because all of those things can be done. So as we looked around at coffees, and we found there were a number of different types of Arabic coffees, that the lowest on the list was the Robusta coffee, and that comes from Malaysia and Asia and out of Brazil. It's a real low-grade coffee, but it's what most companies are using. It's only got 2 chromosomes, so it doesn't produce much flavonoids, and it's grown in bitter soil. And as a consequence, you have a bitter-tasting coffee. But unfortunately, that's what most network marketing companies are using, because it's a big berry and it bloats itself up. And so you can buy the volume and you can put some health benefits with it and make health benefits claims. And most companies are doing it with Ganoderma or a few other different ingredients. And I guess the coffee tastes good if you can choke it down, because the money's got to be pretty good in promoting coffee. That's the way I say it. So gaga gano and smile like it tastes good so that you can make money. But the reality of it, it is a bad taste. It's a bitter coffee. And there's a World's Coffee Taster's Cup, and they rate coffees. And the Robusta bean ranks lowest. It's down somewhere around 61, 62 on the flavor chart. Then if you jump up to the better coffees, the Colombian coffees and things like that, they're things like you see in the supermarket with some of the higher grade coffees. And they jump up about 10 points. And they're somewhere around 72 to 74 on the Coffee Taster's Cup. And then the very best coffees are up into the 80s. And they just rated the best tasting coffee of the top 20 brands that are being sold, the 20 best-selling brands in the world, and they rated Starbucks as number 1. And we estimate that it's about, Starbucks is the number 1. And it's rated, on the Coffee Taster's Cup, we estimate that it's going to be about 81 on it. So 81 is a very high scale, especially when you look at 10 points down for store coffee and 20 points down for the MLM coffee. So you see at Starbucks, anytime you drive down the road and you see a line of cars out there in front of a Starbucks, and you walk inside and the line of people is there waiting to buy a cup of coffee, you know it's got to be a good tasting cup of coffee, and it is. And they have a new system that they've added into it, and it's called microgrind. And they take a Colombian coffee, and then they add some of the coffee from Panama. And the coffee bean, there's 3 different grades of beans they use, and they use one of them that's there, and they microgrind it. And I think it's about 8% or so that's microground of the Panamanian coffee, and the rest of it, and that's just my estimate, is the Colombian coffee, which is a very good grade coffee. But the Panamanian coffee ranks highest in the world. And of the 3 beans that are used, the Panamanian Bacopa coffee is the highest rated bean in the world. In fact, for 12 consecutive years, the World's Coffee Association has ranked the Bacopa coffee bean as the best tasting bean in the world. And so when we decided to build a coffee, we thought that's the bean we want to use. But to buy it and to have somebody manufacture it for us, as the other all other network marketing companies are doing, we couldn't afford to sell the world's best bean because it's so expensive to buy and to process, and then to add all of the things that we wanted into it. So we had but one choice, and that choice was to build our own coffee plant. So that's exactly what we did. Now, as you know, we have the world's largest manufacturing plant for any MLM company. It is a gigantic plant here. And so with that, we had room enough to put a coffee manufacturing plant within our plant. And that's what we're doing. So that now will allow us to take the world's #1 bean and to process it and to make the finest tasting coffee in the world. We believe our coffee bean will come out about 88 on the World Coffee Tasters Cup. And, of course, this is an international standard that's set by the World Coffee Association. And so we are going to have the highest rating that we think is possible from any large selling. I mean, there might be a little type of coffee that's being sold that is a boutique coffee that might be higher ranking, but it will be hard to beat this one. With the coffee that we're using, we're going to use the pure Panamanian bouquet coffee. Now, why is it the best one? Well, it's really easy. Most coffees are grown in low altitudes, and they're in bitter soils, and then the type of the beans they have don't have the flavor. It's just like if you've gone out and you bought an oranges sometimes. You can buy an orange, and it can be pretty bitter tasting. In the summer, real sweet, and some are quite bland. And it's the same thing with coffee. It has to do with three things, and the World Coffee Association says this, and they're correct. What makes the better coffee is, #1, the type of bean. And that makes sense, doesn't it, to start with. The second thing is what type of soil is it grown in. And the third is the altitude that it's grown at. And here's the reasons why the Panamanian coffee is the best. It's a #1 bean with the bouquet, so it has naturally the sweetest, most rich flavor. It has 4 chromosomes in it versus the Robusta coffee that's used by most other network marketing companies only has 2 chromosomes. So the potential to produce more flavonoids, more flavor in it is much greater, plus the bean itself has more of these qualities to do it. And so it's a #1 rated bean. The second thing is when you get it from Panama, there's a unique thing within the Panamanian countryside, and that is volcanic ash that's been deposited down for tens of millions of years. And the volcano in that area is different than in other areas, in that it puts out a really sweet ash, which is decomposed now down into a sweet soil. So now we're taking the #1 bean, we're growing it in the sweetest soil in the world, and this bean grows at the highest altitude. Now, what altitude has to do with coffee is the higher in the altitude you go, the less pollution, the less things to block it, the sun from the sun. So the more that the sun radiates on a coffee bean, the more flavonoids it puts out to protect itself from the assault from the sun. So therefore, the flavor is richer. And so if you have a great tasting bean and sweet soil to grow it in at a high altitude, you're going to have the finest tasting bean or coffee in the world. And of course, the humidity at high altitude is beautiful in Panama because the breezes come up over the Pacific Ocean and they rise up bringing all of that moisture. And when it gets up to that high altitude, it condenses and you have that cool rain coming down on it with all of that sunshine. And that coffee just grows and it develops into the sweetest, best tasting coffee bean in the world. No wonder it's been rated #1 for the last 12 years. And so we've gone in and we've bought up the entire crop that was left this year because we knew it wouldn't be enough. And we're already going into Panama because there's a blight on coffee. In some places like El Salvador and other countries like that have lost 70% of their coffee due to this fungus that's growing on them. It really hasn't hit Panama hard yet, so we're going in and we're contracting. We're going to buy huge amounts of this. We're going to try and buy a year's supply of the coffee beans so that we can process it to ensure, because what we see is going to happen is enormous growth. This is really the big one. This is the giant of all time in MLM, and we're going to be king of the coffee bean pile, I can tell you that. We're going to be standing on top of it because we're going to do it like no other company has ever done it. So, #1, taste is king. And so we're going to have the finest tasting coffee, and we've been doing coffee tastings all around the world now. I come back from Asia doing it. I've been over in Europe doing it. We've been doing it here in the United States. And virtually everyone that simply tastes the raw coffee that we have been producing with nothing else, just the black coffee, says it's the richest, best tasting coffee they have ever had in their entire life. So there we are. We're number one. Now what are we going to add to it? These other companies are adding some health benefits from Ganoderma, and what we did is take a look at it, and we found out from a consultant that had done some analysis on these, says there's insignificant, undetectable amounts of Ganoderma in the coffee that they analyzed from one of the leading MLM companies. We haven't analyzed it ourselves, but we're going to take a look at it. But Ganoderma is really a good property, and it's called the king of mushrooms, and certainly it is a good one. It has some very good health benefits to it and does a lot of things. And so Ganoderma is the type of ingredient that you would probably want in it, but you've got to use enough of it to work. And it's very important for detoxification and for the immune system and antioxidant benefits and things like colds and flu and sugar regulation in the body. Those are the main properties that it has, and so it's a great one. But there are 3 other ingredients that we've added in the health benefits, too, and I'll talk about them. One of them is Gotu-kola. Now, Gotu-kola is it comes from India, and it's a really great one, and they used it traditionally in medicines. Now, we can't make these kind of claims for our products, so I'm just telling you what the ingredients can do, but Gotu-kola is an ingredient where we take the extracts and we concentrate them in all of these, from Ganoderma, from the spores to Gotu-kola extracts, Bacopa extracts, and Chaga extracts. Those are the ones we're using. So as you read about Gotu-kola, it's used for nervous disorders, epilepsy, senility, premature aging, as a brain tonic. It's said to aid intelligence and memory. It strengthens the adrenals and cleanses the blood to treat skin impurities. It combats stress, depression, increases libido, improves reflexes, and it's been used for all types of things like venous insufficiency, minor burns, scars, scleroderma, skin ulcers, varicose veins, wound healing, rheumatism, blood diseases, congestive heart failure, urinary tract infections, hepatitis, high blood pressure. All of those is what it's traditionally been used for. So don't you think that would be a great one to add to our health product? I think the benefits of it are even greater than what it is with Ganoderma. So we have Ganoderma and we have that. And then there's Bacopa, and we use the Bacopa already in our TSX. So here we're going to have it in the coffee, in the extracts. And, of course, that one comes from India, too. And it's used for things like memory and cognitive ability and optimal brain function. And it's especially good for improving attention and focus. And when you have a reasonable amount of the chlorogenic acids that coffee has to go along with that and the type of natural caffeine, you have a tremendous product to be used with that. Plus, it has great antioxidant activity, and it really helps in the brain, too, because the brain uses so much oxygen for preventing oxidative degeneration in the brain. And so then it contains products for supporting to repair neurotransmitters and neurons that have become damaged and all of that, and it's now being considered as a possible treatment for Alzheimer's and Parkinson's disease. Now, granted, you need to understand these are what the ingredients in it have been tested to do. We cannot make that claim with our coffee because we have not tested it for our coffee, but this is what it says about the extracts. So if you look at, and there's many more with that, with Bacopa, acetylcholine for the neurotransmitters, all of these things, anti-anxiety, antidepressant, all of those things are attributed to Bacopa, and also things for asthma and bronchitis and allergies and all of those. So, I mean, isn't that a great ingredient to have in this, too? So there's number 3. But the best of them all is Chaga. And Chaga is a mushroom, but unlike any other mushroom in the world, all mushrooms belong to the plant kingdom in their DNA except Chaga. Its DNA resembles the animal kingdom, and so it's a major breakthrough in the other side. And Chaga breaks through over into the animal side. So we think that's maybe one of the real reasons it has so much power with it, because it's even more compatible with our bodies. But it is the most nutritionally dense ingredient, one of the most nutritionally dense ingredients in all of the world. And it grows on trees in very high altitudes and very cold temperatures. And because of this, it has developed all of these defense mechanisms to protect itself from them. And it's just like coffee being grown in a very high altitude, because this is grown, it only grows where the temperatures get down to about 40 below in the winter, and with little amounts of sunlight and all of that. So the response from this to protect itself is enormous. So it carries a number of different types of ingredients with it. But these ingredients are such that it is very powerful for all types of phytochemicals and nutrients for the body. And it contains the force of actual trees, and because of their spectacular biologically potential substances, some of these trees live far longer than herbs, and some of them will live as long as 10,000 years or more. And so this chaga has enormous qualities within it, vitamins and flavonoids and phenols and minerals and enzymes, and it's very dense in the sorts of pantothenic acid and the vitamin needed by the adrenal glands, as well as the digestive organs. And it contains things like riboflavin and niacin, but in significant amounts, not small amounts. And then it has these pigment-like phenols, which are so powerful, and they're highly protective for all tissues. Now, that's what they say on the literature there, and the Russians have done a tremendous amount of work on this because they realize it. And here it is, so protective for all tissues in the body, and it's only found in chaga. And in it, it's highly protective of the skin and the organ. It contains the pigment melanin, the same pigment that's responsible for darker colored skin. And it's really high in things like copper and calcium and magnesium and zinc and iron and all of those things. And then it is extremely high in the most powerful antioxidant of them all, superoxide dismutase, SOD. And this enzyme has great potential, and it functions to just halt oxidation, especially the toxicity of the free radical known as the singlet oxygen. And this is the type of oxygen that's responsible for oxidizing and damage the tissues, which results in aging. It's the same oxygen that rusts a nail. And the SOD blocks this damage and by quenching it. And so the amount of it in chaga is exceedingly high and accounts for many of its historical powers that it has. And it shows that it can have, chaga alone can have 10,000 to 20,000 active units per gram. Now, that's an exceedingly high amount, far greater than found even in superoxide dismutase pills. I mean, this thing is power like you've never seen it before. So we have this incredible factor. It's been used for longevity. Why would it not be? Look at all these things that are in it with this massive load of superoxide dismutase, which you have in your body. And as you get older, it goes down, and now your coffee's going to be loaded with it. And the ancient Chinese said that this was the king of all of the ingredients. This is the best one around. They used it as a longevity factor. And now researchers around the world, especially to Russia and now into America, are taking a look at this and finding some of the villages where people lived and they consumed this as a daily beverage had much longer lifespan and much less disease and health and degeneration in their body. And the nice thing about these, there isn't any flavor to chaga. It won't even diminish the taste of the coffee at all. And so where we've had the extracts, they're not taking away at all from the flavors of the coffee. The full flavor of the coffee is all going to be there. So the other thing about the wild chaga is it's an adaptogenic. And an adaptogenic makes everything within the body work better as a response to stress. And it protects the body, and it works together because these adaptogens were found out of chaga were found to be the most powerful in the world by the Soviets, and they used it with their athletes and their astronauts and all of this to improve physical and mental work capacity. So that's powerful things to do. So here we have they call it, of all things, the king of all the herbs, mushroom of immortality, diamond of the forest, king of plants, a gift of God. These are all the things they say that it is, and that's coming from Russia, and that's coming from China, and that's Chaga. So Chaga can give you the strength you need to function throughout the entire day. And I'll tell you what we're putting in it. We are putting in a therapeutic dose. And we took a look at this and we thought, well, the average person drinks 3 cups of coffee a day, so let's take a third, and a person will get a therapeutic dose. But how about for the person that takes 1 cup of coffee a day or 2 cups of coffee? Does that mean they're going to get shorted? So here's what we did in the typical Sisel fashion. We decided we're going to put a therapeutic dose in every single cup. Besides, when any ingredient you take in about 8 hours, it's gone. It's out of your body. So you might as well have a therapeutic dose in the evening or afternoon just as well as in the morning. So that's what you get when you get a cup of Sisel coffee. You're going to get a therapeutic dose of Chaga in every single cup. So you've got this enormous power of the king of them all there. And when you combine the world's best tasting coffee, and we're not going to freeze dry it. There is another point, too, with our coffee. We are going to do a micro grind on all of it. While a company like Starbucks is now patenting a micro-grind process where they're micro-grinding their Panamanian coffee to enrich the flavor, because when you freeze-dry the coffee, which is what instant coffees are, you dry out most of the flavor. So as we looked at this, we thought, well, people are buying it because coffee gives them a boost. But can you imagine the boost that you will get with this health product, this health coffee? It is absolutely amazing. With all of these 4 put together with it, you have got sensational health boost on top of the world's best coffee with the most flavonoids in it of any coffee in the world, ranked number 1 for 12 years in a row. Now, what a combination is that? And we won't freeze dry it. So I bought this huge, gigantic, looks like a prehistoric dinosaur to micro grind this coffee down so it's just like talcum powder, so it will dissolve instantly, but none of the flavor will be lost as in instant coffees, where they lose probably 80% or so of their flavor in the process of doing it. And now science has found a mystery ingredient. We're just reading about it, and what they found is in coffee there's a mystery ingredient. I don't know about the cheaper Robusta coffee, but in the regular coffees, the Arabic coffees that have got 4 chromosomes rather than 2, they're finding that there's a mystery ingredient in it. They don't know what it is yet, but they know if you freeze-dry coffee, you lose it. If you remove the caffeine, you lose it. Either way, if you have decaffeinated coffee, it's not there. If you have freeze-dry coffee with caffeine, it's not there. You have to have whole coffee with the normal caffeine load, and together this mystery ingredient survives within that. We're a little worried about it, so we can see where freeze-drying could destroy this thing, and perhaps caffeine is the kicker that makes it go. So with going with a microgrind, we'll have it in it. And here's what the mystery ingredient they said does. Now remember, these aren't claims that we can make with our coffee. We're just talking about ingredients. But it says this mystery ingredient came out, and they said it may be the answer to Alzheimer's because it builds clusters of cells in the brain. Now, that is an amazing thing to have happen. We'll have to see, but we're not going to be able to make those statements. However, we will have a scientific page that will have all of these ingredients on it, and we can list what they do for the ingredients. So here in America, DSHEA allows you, the Dietary Supplemental Health Education Act, allows you to list the ingredients and put them in a separate page so you can go through it and you can look at coffee ingredients. And when you see what these 4 powerful health products do with it, and then we'll have it about the mystery ingredient that's in it, but it's destroyed if it's instant, which is most coffees are, and if it's destroyed if the caffeine isn't there. Here we're not going to have to bother about either one of it because we're going to micro grind it, and every bit of flavor is going to be there because it won't be destroyed by the freeze drying, and the coffee level will be there. So this mystery ingredient is whatever it is. Science doesn't know what it is. They just know what it does. And so we've made sure that our coffee's got that. So now when you take a look at this coffee, is there anything like it in the world? I don't think so. But what we're going to do is we're going to put it out to you like no other coffee company has either. And we're going to have a weight loss coffee come with all of this. And this weight loss, according to regulations, now some places regulate countries, regions regulate higher than others. But here, if you're in the good old USA, guess what? We can use an ingredient called evodiamine. And we're going to use evodiamine, and I'll tell you what that does to your fat thermostat. That cranks it up because you're burning fat, and you'll actually should feel an increase from the thermogenics of that to where you are warmer. And so we have to kind of watch it so you don't get too overheated with this evodiamine, but it puts you into a fat burning state. And then you've heard about green coffee bean. Well, we're going to low roast our coffee so that it's a high roast, and then we're going to grind it. And then as we're grinding it, we're going to put green coffee bean back into it that hasn't even been roasted. So this green coffee, chlorogenics is what the acid is that causes this weight loss, is going to be added into the coffee. And then when it goes into the mixer, we're going to put pure chlorogenic acid in it from green coffee bean too, for the weight loss. So when you have that and you have the evodiamine with it, wow, what a combination you'll have for weight loss. And imagine all of the other things it can do for the body, for the heart, for the immunity, SOD from Chaga, and all of these things coming together. You've got a sensational coffee with whatever you're going to do. And we're going to put it out in the bag. And other companies aren't selling the bag in ML. We're going to have a bag coffee, and you can brew it up or instant right out of the bag. And we're going to have a coffee maker for it. And it is so versatile, you'll be able to do coffee 3 different ways in it. You'll have a K-cup. You can pop it in, and you can brew yourself a cup of coffee in seconds. Or you have a refillable one if you want to use it out of the bag. And so we'll have the coffee maker, we'll have the K-cup, we'll have the bag coffee, and we've got this sensational weight loss coffee. What more could you want?